The top stories tonight in Y News. After her withdrawal for a local position, now Davao City Mayor Sara Duterte officially joins the Lakas-CMD party, fueling speculations that she would run for a national position in the 2022 polls. Meanwhile, Senator Manny Pacquiao will not back out in the presidential race after renewing his friendship with President Rodrigo Duterte.
The Philippines has failed to qualify for a grant from an American aid agency due to its failing mark in the control of corruption, but the palace contradicts the report. And residents from Haiti are praying for rain as the country is in the brink of a water crisis made by gang members.
Good evening, Philippines and the world. Today is Thursday, November 11, 2021. Join us in the next hour as we deliver today's top stories around the Philippines and in other parts of the world. I am Herlene Delgado.
We are also seen in 1,935 satellite monitoring centers nationwide and via live streaming worldwide through the UNTV News and Rescue social media accounts and our website, untvweb.com. I'm Angelo Castro III.
First in the news, Davao City Mayor Sara Duterte officially joins the national party Lakas-CMD. This comes as the window for changing candidates in the 2022 national elections closes on November 15. Nel Maribuhok will tell us why.
Lakas-CMD President and House Majority Leader Martin Romualdez divulged that Davao City Mayor Sara Duterte officially took her oath as a new member of their party at exactly 9 p.m. today. The event happened at Senator Bong Revilla's farm in Cavite. According to Romualdez, Mayor Sara will be a very promising leader and asset to the Lakas-CMD party. Earlier, hugpong ng pagbabago Secretary General Anthony Del Rosario confirmed the resignation of their chairperson, Mayor Sara Duterte Carpio. In her letter to HNP members and officers, the presidential daughter expressed her sadness upon tendering her resignation. On Wednesday, COMELEC spokesperson James Jimenez said that Duterte cannot run for a national position under her regional party. Sara's withdrawal from her re-election bid in Davao City and her transfer to a national party fuels speculations that she would run for a national position in the 2022 polls. Meanwhile, presidential aspirant Manila Mayor Isko Moreno is in Botolan, Zambales to meet with fisher folks. According to Moreno, he will push to lower the electricity rates aside from slashing the price of petroleum products.
Pangalawa kong gagawin, babawasan ko ng 50% ang buwis ng kuryente. Talagang kinikilig kayo, no? Mukhang sapul lang, no? Pero ang tagal na nila, wala nakaisip nun.
The tandem of Senators Panfilo Lacson and Vicente Soto III canceled their weekly Meet the Press to focus on the Senate budget deliberations. Also, the standard bearer of DPDP Laban Kusi Wing, Senator Ronald Bato de la Rosa, is present in today's Senate session. There is no information yet on the activities of Vice President Leni Robredo and Bongbong Marcos. But yesterday, VP Robredo and Senator Francis Pangilinan visited Batangas. Nel Maribuhok, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Senator Manny Pacquiao clarified that his recent meeting with President Duterte was not political. The senator also maintains there is no stopping him from running for the presidency. Arlene Delgado details why.
Senator Manny Pacquiao remains firm that he will not withdraw his candidacy for the country's top post. This comes after his meeting with President Duterte on Tuesday night. They were joined by Vice Presidential aspirant Senator Christopher Bongo and One Pacman Party List Representative Eric Pineda.
Walang atrasan, tuloy po ang laban. The meeting with the President was arranged by common friends. It wasn't a political meeting, but it provided us an opportunity to talk about our shared vision for Mindanao.
In an earlier statement, Pacquiao's camp says it was discussed during the meeting the development of Mindanao, specifically the infrastructure and power industry sectors. Before this, the two leaders of the warring factions of ruling party PDP Laban had been involved in a verbal tussle on certain issues including corruption in the government and the West Philippine Sea. The palace calls the meeting a renewal of friendship. When asked if this signals the possible reconciliation in the ruling party, the palace has this to say.
What I know is what was relayed to me by both Senator Bongo at saka Mr. Eric Pineda. No? So sa ngayon po, it was a friendly meeting. It was a reunion of sorts between two leaders from Mindanao. Iwan na lang po natin doon yun sa ngayon.
Meanwhile, the Commission on Elections says the process on hearing the petitions on who to declare the legitimate representatives of PDP Laban is ongoing. Jorlene Delgado, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God. The Philippines once again failed to qualify for a grant from an independent American aid agency next year, but the government is seemingly unfazed by the report. Rosalie Cos will tell us why.
Only 28 out of 81 countries passed the scorecards of the U.S. government's Millennium Challenge Corporation or MCC for the fiscal year 2022, and the Philippines is not among those selected. MCC is an independent U.S. government agency that provides a 5-year grant and assistance to low and lower middle-income countries to reduce global poverty through economic growth. The country passed more than half of the policy indicators, but it failed in some, including the control of corruption category, which is an important requirement for the MCC funding. Meanwhile, the palace seemed unperturbed.
Ang krusada po natin sa kampanya ay linunsad ng Presidente sa mulat-mula ng kanyang administrasyon at patuloy na binibigyan ng prioridad ng ating Presidente. Kung yan po ay kulang sa tingin ng mga dayuhan, so be it. Pero ang ating ginagawa po mga pulisiya dito sa Pilipinas, independent of what other countries will say.
Presidential spokesperson Roque also stands firm that the Duterte administration is serious in fighting corruption. It was in 2010 when the Philippines and MCC signed the first 5-year grant worth $434 million. But in 2016, the Philippines became ineligible for a new grant due to the issues of human rights hounding the controversial anti-drug war. Rosalie Cos, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
A day before bowing out from his more than 3 decades of police service, Philippine National Police Chief Police General Guillermo Eleazar challenges soon-to-be police officers to live up to the expectation of Filipinos and preserve the honor of the organization. He further calls on the police force to support his successor, Police Lieutenant General Leonardo Carlos. Lea Ilagan explains why.
Outgoing Philippine National Police Chief, Police General Guillermo Eleazar encouraged police cadets to always give their best and not to compromise their honor and dignity in serving and protecting the public. Eleazar made the remark during the testimonial parade and review at the Philippine National Police Academy in Silang, Cavite. The outgoing PNP chief also challenged PNPA cadets to always pursue leadership excellence in the respective fields.
From this field shall emerge the future leaders of the Philippine National Police, and probably not only in the Philippine National Police but in our country. And when the time comes, remember this day that you were challenged by the very person you honored this morning to always do your best to pursue leadership excellence without sacrificing your honor and dignity.
Eleazar further encourages soon-to-be law enforcers to preserve the honor and dignity, not only for themselves but also for their family.
Ang ating pagkatao at ang ating pangalan ay parang isang malinis at maputing uniforme na napakahirap linisin kapag namantsahan. Alalahanin niyo no na ang apelyido na nakalagay sa inyong uniforme ay simbolo ng inyong pamilya at angkan. Kapag nasira ito, hindi lang kayo ang magdurusa, kung hindi pati ang inyong mga magulang, ang inyong pamilya, at ang inyong mga magiging anak.
He also urged the police force to rally behind the leadership of his successor, Police Lieutenant General Junardo Carlos. Eleazar, a member of PMA Hinirang Class of 1987, is set to retire from the service on November 13. Leia Ilagan, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Rodrigo Duterte has approved the nationwide implementation of the COVID-19 alert level system by phases through Executive Order number 151. This is to allow further economic recovery through the opening of more business sectors while protecting the people's health through the continuous observance of public health protocols and implementation of granular lockdowns. The nationwide rollout of the alert system will be in 4 phases. The first phase, which is ongoing, includes the National Capital Region, Regions 3, 4A, 6, 7, 10, and 11. The second phase, which may begin at any time but not later than the end of November, will be Regions 1, 8, and 12, while third and fourth phases will be carried out every week thereafter until the full nationwide implementation in December.
Learners who will participate in the conduct of limited face-to-face classes are not required to get tested for COVID-19, according to the Department of Education. Janice and Henta reports why.
The Department of Education insists that it will be difficult for students to participate in limited face-to-face classes if they are regularly subject to swab testing. According to Dept, they will still follow the guidelines set by the Department of Health, where student will only take antigen testing if he or she has symptoms or exposure to an infected person.
We really cannot imagine the small children undergoing the swab test, no? Kasi very traumatic. I mean, even for us adults, mahirap. And the answer of DOH is really no. They will not be subjected to antigen testing or swab test, but we will rely on symptoms.
The Alliance of Concerned Teachers wants all students, teachers, and school staff who will participate in the face-to-face classes to undergo weekly antigen testing. This is also the position of one of the conveners of the Coalition for People's Right to Health.
Kailangan ng routine checks, no? Pero hindi po kasi ito nakikitang useful lamang, no? Kasi yung nakasanayan natin, no, yung pag-check lang ng temperature, kung may sintomas, no, hindi siya enough, no, para masabi talagang ligtas, lalo na sa usapin ng paaralan.
Meanwhile, parents are also not in favor too of the regular swab testing.
Para sa akin, pag mga bata kasi, especially yung mga, siguro sabihin natin mga 7, hindi siya advisable eh. Kasi kapag swab tayo, yung mga matatanda, parang masakit para sa atin yun. Paano pa sa kanila?
Siyempre po, masakit yun. At saka, feeling ko hindi din papayag mga anak kong ganun, na iswab test sila, ang ganun.
According to ASIC Garma, instead of the antigen test, they encourage students aged 12 to 17 to get vaccinated for additional protection against COVID-19. Janice and Hente, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Philippines today logged 1,974 more cases of COVID-19, pushing the nationwide tally of confirmed infections to 2,811,248. Department of Health or DOH said the latest count brought the country's active cases to 28,660. Of these cases, 62.1% are mild, 17.15% are moderate, 10.4% are severe, 5.9% are asymptomatic, and 4.4% are in critical condition. Meanwhile, total recoveries rose to 2,737,722 after 2,388 more patients recovered from the disease. COVID-related deaths climbed to 44,866 with 142 new fatalities. All accredited testing laboratories in the country were operational on November 9, but 5 laboratories failed to submit data on time, the DOH noted in its report. Meanwhile, the overall global COVID-19 caseload has reached 251,462,386 831, while the deaths have surged to 5,073,411, according to the Johns Hopkins University. The U.S. is the worst hit country with the world's highest number of cases and deaths at 46,792,081 and 759,060 respectively. This is followed by India in terms of infections, and in terms of deaths, Brazil comes third.
The Metropolitan Manila Development Authority taps a group of dentists in the country as COVID-19 vaccinators. The Department of Health, on the other hand, targets to deploy them in vaccination sites starting next week. Lights found with Y from Asher Cadapan Jr.
All COVID-19 vaccinators, regardless of profession, need to undergo training and simulations prior to their deployment to vaccination sites. The Department of Health explains members of the Philippine Dental Association would participate in the vaccination program of the government.
Meron kasing training and orientation sa nagagawin sa lahat ng mga vaccinators. Bago natin sinasabak yan, no? Even the doctors, nurses themselves, no-orient pa rin yan. Kasi may mga special peculiarities itong pagbabakuna ng COVID-19. What more pagbata? Okay? Kasi meron ding special na mga requirements para sa mga bata.
The DOH plans to deploy them as soon as they have completed their training next week. In accordance with the We Vax as One program, they will be deployed in Metro Manila and adjacent areas including Cavite, Bulacan, Rizal, Laguna, and Batangas. The number of dentists who may participate as vaccinators reaches to about 200 in Metro Manila alone.
We dentists are here to protect the frontliners po na parating pagod. Nakakapagod po magbakuna. Nakakapagod po mag-screen. Lalo na po nakakaawa po yung mga doctors natin at saka nurses na nag-i-inoculate araw-araw.
Metropolitan Manila Development Authority Chairman Benhar Abalos Jr. on the other hand explains the augmentation will significantly help further increase the vaccination rate as the vaccination program expands.
Darating na naman ang pagbabakuna ng ating mga anak, mga minors na binabakunahan ngayon. Baka dumating na rin ang booster shots kung ito'y aaprubahan ng DOH. At hindi lamang yun, nagbabakuna pa rin kami sa tinatawag na catch-up program. Ito yung mga rubella, measles, mga polio, etc. So kung titignan nyo, ang dami nating kailangan para magbakuna.
Asher Cadapan Jr., UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The COVID-19 positivity rate in the National Capital Region has significantly declined below the benchmark of the World Health Organization. But this does not mean that the public should be complacent. Aiko Miguel tells us why live. Yes, Aiko, go ahead.
Yes, Diego, compared to the situation of the country's pandemic epicenter, Metro Manila, last year, the positivity rate is only now at 3%, from 6% compared to the same period last 2020. Octo Research says this is good news, and the bigger volume of tests being conducted has contributed to the lower positivity rate. Here is Professor Guido David of Octo Research team.
We are in fact better compared to last year. An average of 400 cases. Last year it was at 500. Fewer active cases, 6,000 versus 10,000. Even the positivity rate is lower, and the testing is actually 37% higher. That's quite an achievement, although WHO recommends 5% or lower. CDC actually, or some other institutions actually recommend 3% or lower. So we are at that level.
Diego, also there are just 365 daily average cases recorded in National Capital Region and only over 2,000 cases daily nationally. NCR's healthcare utilization rate is just at 27%, and 14 local government units in NCR are at low risk level, while 3 LGUs are now at very low risk classification.
We are at the point where we might reach a plateauing sometime soon, or the cases might decrease further. We think it's going to be the latter. Why would cases decrease further? Because of the continued vaccination rollout.
Diego Octa research team supports the de-escalation of NCR to alert level 1 by December, but it will still depend on the DOH's and interagency task force decision. Meanwhile, Presidential Advisor for Entrepreneurship, Joey Concepcion, has said that we should not worry when cases go up with more Filipinos getting inoculated.
Who cares if cases go up, provided those that are being infected are fully vaccinated? Because it will prevent hospitalization. And that's very clear. When we say, okay, cases are going up to 1,000, 2,000, let's lock down. Let's hold back. Who are those getting infected? If it's the unvaccinated, yes, then we should be concerned. But if it is the vaccinated that are getting infected, then let's not be concerned about it.
Meanwhile, Diego, the DOH reminds the public not to be complacent as COVID-19 still exists. The public cannot set aside the risk of cases increasing when mobility increases. Also, according to the DOH, being fully vaccinated does not mean zero transmission. And that is the latest live. Back to you, Diego.
Thank you for that report. Aiko Miguel, live from Quezon City.
And for the news abroad, the water shortage in Haiti has been severe and could lead to a further chaos as gangs block the access roads of distributing supplies. Now, Haitian women said they are praying for rain every day. Joselito Liquido details why live. Yes, Joselito.
Good evening, Mariel. Residents of the capital Port-au-Prince say they cannot get hold of drinking water as water pumps have been stopped working due to the lack of fuel. Tanker lorries carrying fuel were not allowed to pass by gang members as they have blocked the entrances to the port. Deliveries of bottled water have also been disrupted, leaving Haitian residents to rely on rainwater every day. The fuel shortage has been severe and is threatening the lives of patients in hospitals which rely on fuel-powered life-saving machines. Measures taken so far by the authorities to deliver the patrol safely had failed to work. The National Police Chief France Elby said they had set up a security corridor from the Davao terminal in the capital and that goods such as rice, cooking oil, and cement were getting through except petrol. Haitian gangs have long extorted delivery drivers, but the situation has escalated. Their criminal activities become more brazen following the assassination of President Jovenel Moise. Meanwhile, the former police officer Jimmy Cherizier, known as Barbecue, who leads an alliance of 9 of the most powerful gangs in Port-au-Prince, admitted that he was behind the blockades around the fuel terminal. In a news conference last month, he said that he would not allow fuel to be delivered until Prime Minister Ariel Henry stepped down. Mariel?
Thank you, Joselito Liquido, for that live report. Google escapes a lawsuit as the United Kingdom Supreme Court blocks privacy allegations against the company. Paul Gatchalian will tell us why live. Yes, Paul, good evening.
Mariel, due to the lack of evidence to support the claimant's claims against damage implicated by Google among United Kingdom iPhone users, says Judge Lord Leggett, the case has been rejected. Though it was a unanimous decision, if any damages towards users are identified in the future, mass action lawsuits may possibly be put in place. The case against Google was made by consumer rights activist Richard Lloyd, who insisted that from 2011 to 2012, Google illegally collected iPhone users' Safari search histories after users asked not to be tracked. Lloyd is bitterly disappointed with the outcome decided by the Supreme Court, expressing their failure to protect the millions of users and called upon the government to step in. A Google spokesperson has since then responded, stating, "Throughout the years, Google has put first the protection of people's privacy, addressing that the decade-old events have already been disclosed." Mariel?
Paul, are there any other existing cases against Google in terms of their breach of privacy?
Well, Mariel, Google has recently fined with 2.4 billion euros from the regulators as they were revealed to have abused their online power, taking illegal advantage of their search results recommendations. They, however, made an appeal but were rejected by the European Court yesterday. Back to you, Mariel.
Thank you, Paul Gatchalian, reporting live. Today marks the 103rd anniversary of the end of World War I, and for Australia, it is a day to remember the 60,000 troops who died defending the country. Mavian Dog will give us the details live. Yes, Maeve, please go ahead.
Mariel, in keeping with the country's yearly tradition, Australians paused at 11 a.m. local time for a minute's silence in reflection of the lives lost during the First World War. Veterans Affairs Minister Andrew Gee acknowledged the courage of those who fought on the Western Front more than 100 years ago, those who have recently come back from Afghanistan, and those who are still serving abroad, encouraging Australians to do the same. This year will especially be difficult for those who served in Afghanistan, according to Mr. G, and also for families who have lost loved ones. This year's Remembrance Day is also the first time in over 20 years that Australia is not involved in any active conflict. Aside from observing a minute of silence, Australians are also encouraged to wear a red puppy. The wildflower has been a symbol of remembrance and hope after it grew over the battlefields of the Western Front in northern France after the World War I. Marielle?
Thank you, Maven Dog, reporting live from Toowoomba, Australia. NASA's plan to send astronauts back to the moon has been delayed from its original plan of 2024 and now has been pushed out to 2025. RK Llorca will tell us why live. Yes, RK.
Yes, Mariel, NASA Administrator Bill Nelson confirmed earlier this week that the delay was because the Artemis program did not receive enough funding from the U.S. Congress to develop its landing system and for the Orion capsule. However, Mr. Nelson also added that the legal issues concerning the U.S. government's decision to award Elon Musk's SpaceX to build its Starship lunar landing system created additional slowdown. Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin has questioned the legality of said decision, but the lawsuit was quashed by a judge last week. NASA is now targeting February 2022 for the first test flight of the moon rocket, the Space Launch System or SLS, with the Orion capsule, but no astronauts will be on board. Instead, astronauts will strap in for the second Artemis flight but land only in 2025. Meanwhile, Mariel, U.S. Vice President and National Space Council Chair Kamala Harris will meet the council for the first time on December 1 to discuss other details. Back to you, Mariel.
Thank you, RK Llorca, for that live report. In other news, New Zealand's Prime Minister Jacinda Arderns addressed the nation via Facebook Live to talk about the changing COVID-19 restrictions and how the nation reached 90% first dose vaccination. This was when the limelight was stolen by her 3-year-old daughter, Neve.
You're meant to be in bed, darling. It's bedtime, darling. Pop back to bed. I'll come and see you in a second. I'll come and see you in a minute, okay? Sorry, everybody.
The PM jokingly said it was a bedtime fail and continued to talk about the summer plans for Auckland. Undeterred, her 3-year-old daughter can be heard in the background calling out for PM Arderns, forcing her to end her Facebook live stream to give bedtime another try. And those are the reasons behind the news in other parts of the globe. I am Mariela Toza reporting live from Perth, Australia. Good evening.
More health workers will be able to work abroad after the Department of Health said it is possible to increase the 6,500 deployment cap for nurses and other medical workers. Eileen Cerudo will tell us why.
The nursing board exam last July has produced around 5,000 new nurses, according to DOH. Pretchel Tolentino from the DOH Health Policy and Systems Development Team said that the higher number of newly registered nurses would cause a higher possibility to increase the deployment cap of nurses to 2,000. Tolentino said the DOH is awaiting for the results of the November nursing board examination to determine if the annual average production of 12,000 nurses will be met.
The 5,000 day passers, we can allow in 2022, we can allow an additional of 2,284 deployment additional for nurses. Kung ma-reach po natin yung 12,000, assuming meron tayong madadagdag na 7,000 from the board exam this November, we can increase po. Ang maximum po is 4,457 pa.
Clamors of removing or increasing the deployment cap were raised by medical groups, saying that the government should not hinder health workers to have better opportunity abroad. However, with the challenges faced during the COVID-19 pandemic, the country is in need of more medical workers to tend to virus-infected patients. More health workers are also needed for the country's COVID-19 vaccination drive. The Philippine Overseas Employment Association previously suspended the processing deployment of newly hired health workers after the 6,500 mark was reached. POEA admin Bernard Olalia said the agency also support increasing the deployment cap of medical workers. But it will be up to the Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases to decide if the deployment cap will be increased.
We are still awaiting further from the IATF on whether to increase the cap or to expand the coverage of the exemption.
Eileen Cerudo, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
This just in, the UNTV News team got a copy of the summons over the petition to cancel former Senator Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr.'s certificate of candidacy. Dante Amento will give us the details live. Dante, what are the questions being asked in the summons?
Diego, Marcos's camp is given 5 days to file a response to the petition upon receipt of the summons. The answer to the petition must be filed through email to the clerk of the Commission on Elections. Failure to comply would bar the respondent from submitting their controverting evidence or filing a memorandum. A motion to dismiss the petition would not also be admitted. Both parties are also advised that preliminary conference of the case would be on November 26, 2021 at 10 o'clock in the morning via video conference. After the pre-conference meeting, the cancellation case would be deemed for a resolution. Diego, some civic groups recently filed a petition before the poll body against the presidential aspirant and former Senator Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr., seeking to cancel his certificate of candidacy for allegedly false material representation in his COC. And that's our latest live. Back to you, Diego.
Thank you for that report, Dante Amento, reporting live from Quezon City.
And before we close, we will leave you with a word, giving glory to God. From the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 7, verse 20, it says, "For there is not a just man upon earth that doeth good and sinneth not."
And those are the reasons behind the news, November 11, 2021. Reasons we deliver to you as they unfold. I'm Angelo Castro III.
Because we need to know, we will always ask why. I'm Hardin Delgado. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
It was a friendly meeting. It was a reunion of sorts between two leaders from Mindanao. Iwan na lang po natin doon yun sa ngayon.
Pag sinabi ng customer, vaccinated ako pero hindi hinanap yung card, yun po is a ground for telling us, the authorities, the LGUs, na itong restaurant to ay hindi sumusunod dun sa requirement po.
Understandably, we're all saddened by it and demoralized. Sa Senado, medyo out of touch talaga, medyo elitista. No, hindi nila alam yata yung Sana we would like to invite them to go down with us and see what the realities are.